Hey guys, good morning. I hope y'all are doing well on day 8 of social distancing, isolation, having to stay in our homes and try not to go too crazy without too much interaction, but just with our families. Um, this morning for devotional 2, we're going to look back into Psalm 27, and this morning we're going to look at verse 8 in Psalm 27. And so, verse 8 in Psalm 27 says, "My heart says to you, your face, Lord, do I seek." Now, one of the things I think I want us to look at this morning is this thought that there is only one person who influences your life the most, and that is you. We influence each other's life, but you actually influence your life more than anyone else because no one is talking to you more than you. You are always organizing, you're always analyzing things, you're always going over conversations in your head, you're saying things to yourself, you have an inner dialogue about what's going on in your heart. And here, David is saying, Lord, you make my mind, heart, and soul seek you. He's talking to himself. He's trying to get himself to believe, to pursue, to understand that there is a dialogue in his head. And he is trying to push truth into that conversation. He's trying to help his heart to understand, Lord, help me to seek you. In the midst of everything that's going on, all the conversations that are going on in my head, all the ways in which I am spiraling, all the ways in which I am starting to deflect, to become numb, to analyze and be confused, he pushes all of that away. And he tries to say here in verse 8, Lord, you are the one I want to seek. You are the one I want to seek. And so as we look at this concept of you are the one that talks to you more than anyone else, I want you to think about the ways in which maybe you rehearse your schedule or you rehearse all the conversations in your head about how they're going to go, or you go over and over a conflict that just happened and you're trying to figure out, was I in the right or was I in the wrong? Maybe if I did this differently, that would have turned out differently. Everyone knows how these conversations go in our heads, right? Or maybe you're just simply telling yourself to buck up, slow down, hang in there, take the choice, whatever your self-talk is. I think we all talk to ourselves differently. But most of the time, our self-talk is not leading us to Jesus. Most of the time, our self-talk is not infusing truth into our minds, into our hearts. Most of the time, it is pushing us further into ourselves, further into isolation, further into confusion, further into self-righteousness. It's not doing what David has called his heart to do here. By infusing the truth that, Lord, I need my heart and mind to seek you. I need to seek you because I am not in control of the conversations that are going on in my mind as much as I want to be. They are just going and going and going, and there's not much truth involved in the conversations that actually go on in my mind. And so here he's pushing us to understand that. And I think the question is, how wholesome, faith-driven, and Christ-centered are the thoughts that are going on, are the conversations that are going on in our minds? How wholesome, how Christ-driven, how truth-filled are they? Or are they just spiraling around fictitious what-ifs? Are they spiraling around our self-image, our reputation, our fears, our anxieties, all these what-ifs? Or are they Christ-centered? Are they wholesome? Are they faith-driven? Are they truth? Are they scripture? Are they about the Lord? Are they pushing us to the Lord? And I think in these days, the conversations we have with ourselves probably are widening because the lack of structure and schedule and the things that we have going on typically in our lives have been taken. And so there's more time to dive deeper and deeper and deeper into our thoughts, into our hearts. And the conversations that go around in our minds are starting to probably build on themselves. So I don't know what the conversation is for you. I know for me, there's been a struggle of just like a conversation of, do you even have purpose? Do you even have a way in which you can feel fulfilled? Are you even being successful? Is there any purpose in having to stay home and not be relational as a pastor typically is? Is there even a reason to get up in the morning? Because you're just going to sit at home. All those conversations have gone on in my brain. They've gone on in my heart. And as you can hear, there's not a lot of truth in them. There's a lot of Andrew, there's a lot of what ifs, and there's a lot of Satan trying to push lies into my conversations in my mind that I would then believe about myself. No one is more influential in our lives than us, because no one talks to you and me more than you and me. No one. It doesn't even come close if we really think about it. The conversations, the things, the statements that are made to us in our minds, in our own conversations, in our heads, doesn't even come close. Well, so I have to ask you a question. How are you counseling yourself today? I'll tell you, for me, I'm doing a really pretty pathetic job. I would not want to pay my counselor, being me. The way in which I talk to myself, the way in which I allow myself to dwell in places of untruth, of lies, it's not counseling myself well. I'm not bringing truth into the conversations. And it's a battle. It's a battle to put truth in. And we have to understand that that battle is one we have to fight every day. And if not, the battle for truth will not happen. We will just continue to dwell on lies, and those lies will become the actions of our life. We will live out of those lies. We won't live out of the truth of Scripture. We won't live out of the truth of the gospel. We will live out of the lies that circle around the conversations in our head that then become the actions that then become our actual lives. All based around a conversation that happened in our minds around a lie. Here's the good news. Jesus is called Wonderful Counselor. He is the wonderful counselor. There's a reason David is saying, Lord, help me to seek you. Get me out of my own mind. Get me off of myself. Put my eyes, my thoughts onto truth. There are so many other things he could have been thinking about. He could have been focused on. He could have been trying to control, but he wasn't. He was trying to say, Lord, help me to dwell on truth. I need truth. I need you. So we have a wonderful counselor. But I want to end with talking about, how do we do this, though? Like, practically speaking, how do we actually do this? How do we talk ourselves through this process? And so there's a couple stats I want to talk to you with that I think are super cool. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a graph from a book that I love. I'm reading through right now by Jenny Allen called Get Out of Your Head. And I think this graph is super helpful for these conversations that happen in our minds. So the first thing, let me read you a couple of these stats I think are super cool. So the way in which we infuse truth into our conversations in our minds is only by one way. It is by being still and knowing that He is God. Intimately knowing, but we have to stop. We have to dwell with the Lord. He is where truth comes from. He's the epicenter of truth. So we have to go to Him. We have to be still with Him. And we have to know Him. And here's some crazy things. These aren't even all believers, but what scientists have found by the fact of us being still. These are the things that happens in our minds. Our brains will be physiologically altered. Scientists have found that brains of people who spend untold hours in prayer and meditation are actually different. The way that they're wired are different. Your imagination will be rewired. Inappropriate thoughts can be combated with positive thoughts. Repeating an inspiring quote or some other positive activity, playing music, a new hobby. The kind of brain waves present during relaxation increases, and anxiety and depression actually decreases. Several studies have demonstrated that subjects who meditated for a short time showed increased alpha waves, or relaxed brain waves, and decreased anxiety and depression. These are the things that come from our time spent in the quiet. Spent in the quiet as we listen and hang out with our Father, the Lord. It also says that a study from UCLA found that long-term meditators had better preserved brains than non-meditators as they aged. There's literally something happening in our brains. We have been wired to stop. We have been wired to pause, to be still, and to seek the Lord. David is helping to rewire his brain here in Psalm 27. He's rewiring his brain to remind itself that you need to seek the Lord. You need to be still and know that He is God, so that truth can enter into the conversations in our minds. It's crazy how this happens. One last thing. A study at Yale found that mindfulness and meditation decreases activity of the default mode network, or maybe normal term could be monkey mind. The brain network responsible for mind wandering and self-referential thoughts. We need to be renewing our minds. So to end, I want to show this really cool progression of how this can work in the negative way and how this can work in the positive way. So here we go. All right, so you have an emotion that you start with, an emotion that jumps into your mind, and then you have a thought based on that emotion. You have a behavior, and then you have a relationship, and then you have a consequence. So here's how this is going to work. First, this is our negative emotion. So we're discontent. Y'all can't see that. Let me get a better marker for you. So we're discontent first. And then a thought comes into our brain. I would feel better if distracted. So I'm discontent right now. I would feel better if I was distracted. That's the thought that comes into our brains. And that this behavior comes out. Constant inputs. So this could be Netflix, this could be your phone, this could be eating a lot, this could be staying up really late, this could be video gaming, this could be so many things. This could be hanging out with friends. And then the relationship that comes from this is needy and frantic. And then the consequence at the very end is insecurity. Insecurity starts all the way back here. There was a discontent thought or emotion. The thought happened that I would be better if I was distracted. Then we start to distract ourselves. Then we feel needy and frantic. And then ultimately we feel insecure. Now, here's the positive way. Same thing, the emotion of discontent. We have the emotion of being discontent again, but our thought this time only God satisfies. So we're discontent, but our thought this time is not, I would be better if I was distracted. Only God satisfies. Okay? And then it goes from there to prayer and meditation. Now, because we have had the thought that only God satisfies, it pushes us in to truth. It pushes us into being still, to pray and to meditate. And then we have this relationship as a the result of that prayer and meditation is calming and reassuring. That's the relationship. Instead of needy and frantic, we get this calming and reassurance. And the consequence is, in the end, we feel secure. We feel secure. Instead of insecurity, we feel secure. So you see how the emotion is the same, but the process in which the emotion plays itself out in our heads is different. I hope this is helpful for y'all as we talk about the conversations that are happening in our minds, and that this process that we just went through is helpful in how you think through the emotions that turn into thoughts, that turn into behaviors, relationships, and consequences. That the consequences that we're experiencing don't just come out of nowhere. There's a process to them. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope this pulls us back to what David is trying to say here in Psalm 27. That all the way back, the emotion that he felt, fear or anxiety, that the consequence could have been insecurity, fear, continuing to tear him apart inside. But instead, he went to the Lord. He went and said, I need you. I need to seek you. And that's that prayer and meditation. And he got calming and reassuring in that relationship with the Lord. And now a feeling of being secure. So this morning, I want to encourage you in a couple things. One, I just want you to encourage you maybe to walk through this process yourself of an emotion that you have. And as you walk through this process, that you just journal about how that has made you feel. And then as you do that, I also just want you to spend time praying, meditating, praying. And I want to encourage you in one other thing. I want you to think about, in this season of being at home, being bored, to think about putting your technology aside, having certain times throughout the day which you go to your phone, but to put it aside and to spend time to be still and know that he is God, to seek the Lord, as David would say, in our conversations, in our minds, so that truth can be a part of our lives. Thank y'all so much.